I missed a few critical pieces of information in my reveal video covering Emperor Qin Shi Huang that I need to talk about today, because I actually think that he is going to be absolutely insane, so much so that this video breaks one of my #1 rules on YouTube, which is do not post more than one video in a 12-hour window. I never want to bombard your feed with content. Posting this video so soon after my most recent one will probably kill the viewership and engagement of my most recent video, but it's just that important that we talk about this. So please do me a favor, drop a thumbs up on the video, subscribe if you want breaking news for Rise of Kingdoms, and if you missed my most recent video where I covered all of the skills for Emperor Qin Shi Huang and Shapur the First, check it out on the channel. It's like 27 minutes long and we go in depth. Now of course, before we jump in, what's going on, guys? Cheers. As I mentioned in my most recent video, lately I've been posting a lot of content on my second channel and I've been going live on Twitch. Both of those are going to be in the description below if you want more Omniarch content. But with all that out of the way, let's jump into the number one critical detail that I missed. His active skill is rage consumed. This completely changes my understanding of Emperor Qin, and if you watched my original video, you can see me struggling to figure out how does this commander work with what is already in the game, and this single word right here completely changes everything. We don't have to think about rage cap, we don't have to think about any of the things that I suggested in my reveal video. Rage consumed of 1,000 is absolutely game-changing for Emperor Qin, and it's kind of this is why it's so frustrating that I record these videos at 5 in the morning, because I even read the name of the skill, and I read everything except for this word right here. I saw the word rage, I saw the number 1,000, so I knew the rage, because I always check the rage requirement. That's important, right? But we've never seen rage consumed before, and so my brain just skipped over that. In my brain it said rage requirement, but that's because I was still half asleep. So what is this change for Emperor Qin? Rage consumed of 1,000 is insane, because as you guys know, if you saw my first video, Emperor Qin is consuming a ridiculous amount of rage every single turn. His second skill, called Iron Pierces Bronze, says whenever you launch base attack, you spend 100 rage to convert that into direct damage. So you're spending 100 rage every single turn that you can. If you don't have 100 rage, you obviously can't spend it. And then when you deal damage with Iron Pierces Bronze or Eternal Emperor, you spend another 25 rage to drain rage from the enemy. And then on the fourth skill, if you take skill smiter combo damage, you also spend 40 rage. So there are so many different ways that you can spend rage on Emperor Qin, and the possibilities here are endless. The one question that I have here though is draining enemy rage also considered consumption, right? I'm gonna be honest, it's probably not. Okay, it's probably not. So I'm just throwing out ideas here, but we're using a lot of different terminology here. His active skill is rage consumed, and yet here we see spends rage. On the second skill it says spends rage. So again, I'm assuming that the word spend is equal to consume, right? So in a way, if you're draining rage from the enemy, you're also kind of spending their energy on your behalf, right? So just something to think about. I don't think that this is going to count towards your consumption of rage, but it's possible. Now the reason that rage consumption completely changes how this commander works is because originally, as you can see in my original video where I covered this, I was struggling to figure out, like, man, you're spending so much rage, it means that your active skill is going to fire off even slower than normal. How is this even going to work? But the answer was right in front of me all along. And as you guys know, the rage requirement of your secondary commander is completely irrelevant in all scenarios. And so what this means is the faster that Emperor Qin can spend his rage or consume rage, the faster your secondary commander is going to cast as well. And so this is the first time in Rise of Kingdoms history that we have a commander that has a variable active skill cycle, right? The more opportunities that you have to drain rage, the faster your skill cycle is going to be, and likewise, the slower that you're spending your rage, the slower your skill cycle is going to be. And so what you want with Emperor Qin is to dive headfirst into the battle, be hitting 5 targets at all times with this active skill, and you want to be pumping out as much rage consumption as possible, so that way your secondary commander can be firing their active skills off as much as possible as well. That was the #1 thing that I missed in my initial reveal video, but it doesn't stop there. The second skill talks about spending rage to convert your damage into direct damage. Okay, so what this means is when you deal a basic attack, if you have enough rage to do this, what the game will do is, instead of dealing normal attack damage for every basic attack, you will spend 100 rage and convert that into equivalent skill damage. Okay, you're dealing direct damage. This is a skill damage commander. So what this means is, every single turn you're not going to be dealing normal damage, you're going to be dealing skill damage. Every single turn is skill damage, as long as you have 100 rage to spend, right? Which just blows the doors wide open for the damage potential of this commander, right? Hello, let's pair him with YSG and give him 62% bonus to skill damage, and great news, every turn is skill damage if you're spending 100 rage. That completely changes my understanding of this commander, which makes him way stronger than I initially thought. But it doesn't end there, because the active skill, look at the active skill. Whenever you deal direct damage with a basic attack via the Iron Pierces Bronze skill, it also deals 60% of the damage to up to 5 nearby enemy troops. So what we can deduce from that is that if the Iron Pierces Bronze skill is dealing skill damage, then if this is just a 60% modifier on that, then this is also probably skill damage, right? Now of course we'll have to test this in game, but what else could it possibly be? It must be skilled. I mean, I guess it could be like an additional damage over time tick or something like that, but most likely this is skill damage. So again, we revisit the possibility of pairing him with somebody like YSG, who has just through the roof skill damage bonus, or you could even pair him with somebody like Zhuge Liang, who has skill damage bonus, or you pair him with somebody like Hermann Prime, who has AoE skill damage bonus, and this is AoE. This is a 5 target AoE, or up to 5 targets I should say. So the bonuses to skill damage here are going to be absolutely insane. And the number one thing that makes me think that is this animation that was posted after I already posted my video. So in my defense, I did not include this in my video because it wasn't out yet. Okay, so but it does absolutely change everything, because watch this, buddy. Oh man, I'm getting excited just looking at that, dude. Look at the red numbers, bro. Oh my god. So remember what I just told you, all of that is skill damage. Every single tick of that is skill damage on all of these different enemies that you're hitting. It actually could break the game. This is truly an insane amount of skill damage. It doesn't seem like that much because it's a small amount every single turn, but it's 5 targets every single turn, and all of it is skill damage, and all of it is probably going to benefit from bonuses to skill damage, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And this single animation is what just like I was like, I have to film another video today. I can't not show this, because this is what Emperor Qin is all about. This is how he's going to work. It is going to be just an AoE constant burn of your enemies with skill damage, and the more of those red numbers you see, the more rage that you're consuming, the more you're going to keep that Emperor's buff alive, and the more that this madness will continue. And just watch the rage bar, right? It starts at 500 and then boom, 1 2 3 4, we've cast it again, oh, we've cast it again, and oh, we've cast it again. And every single time that you cast your secondary, look at that, there was a double cast of Zhuge Liang right there. This is going to be absolutely diabolical, and the secondary commander is probably going to cast way more than we initially thought, or I guess I should say I initially thought. So now that we have a really good understanding of how Emperor Qin is going to work in Rise of Kingdoms, I want to touch on the number one problem that archers face in the open field right now. You guys probably know it. Let's say it together. Okay, they're always targeted. They're always targeted. Archers are the number one thing that is targeted in the open field, and what better way to solve that problem than by giving Emperor Qin the 4th skill that they gave him. Okay, whenever you take skill damage, smite damage, or combo damage with over 300 damage factor, you spend 40 rage to reduce the damage by 40%, and you're already taking 10% less normal damage. So this 4th skill is way better than I initially thought, because not only are you becoming mega tanky, I thought that the 40 rage was like, oh yeah, it's a cost to be super tanky. That's unfortunate, but at least you're super tanky, right? No. If you're targeted and you're taking all of this bonus damage, it increases the speed that you cast your active skills, because the more of these that you take, the more rage that you spend, the faster you cast your active skill, the faster your secondary casts their active skill. And so this has a double effect of being way more tanky when taking the damage and casting your active skills more often, which is just insane. These little details just completely flipped the script on how I look at Emperor Qin, and I really think that his damage output potential could be overwhelming. Like, he actually could be the highest damage per second commander in the entire game, and it might not even be close, especially if all the ticks of this damage are skill damage like I suspect they are. Oh man, having him on the field is going to be just like lighting everything on fire, and everything's just always going to be taking damage, and it is what it is. Sorry, you're not going to not take damage. Now let's talk about inscriptions here with Emperor Qin, because since his second skill is converting every basic attack into a single target damage factor, which is, I suspect, skill damage, this has crazy implications for how these inscriptions are going to work on Emperor Qin, right? All of his damage is basically boosted by 5%, not just his active skill, but like almost all of his damage is skill damage, so that's crazy. But then also his basic attacks are not really basic attacks. If you're spending the 100 rage, they're actually small single target damage factors, which are going to be increased by 10% now, and then everything else, like his active skill 5 target, is going to be boosted by the 2%. And then we have to look at Crazed, right? Crazed is actually really solid here as well, because you're dealing direct damage pretty much every turn, right? And we're really going to want as much rage as possible on Emperor Qin, and so Crazed could actually be really good here. Now it does have a 2-second cooldown, but you're basically going to be firing this every time it's off cooldown. You're going to be getting this, which is wild. Now Unstoppable, again, it's just going to be boosting all the damage that Emperor Qin's going to do, most likely. How balanced it's going to work, I have no idea, because you're not even casting active skills based on rage accumulation, you're casting active skills based on rage consumption. So maybe if you've consumed 800 rage, then you're going to deal 8% more skill damage for the next 3 seconds. Not really sure, but yeah, I'm really interested to see how Crazed is going to work here. Okay, so now that we really understand how Emperor Qin is going to work, does that change who I think the best commander pairs are going to be? And the answer is kind of, but not really. First of all, we saw Zhuge Liang in the animation that I just shared with you guys, and he pops his active skill a tremendous amount of times, and that is just flat out, without going too deep into it. The more you're casting Zhuge Liang, the better, right? Just kind of open and shut case, that is true. But now that we know pretty much all of Emperor Qin's damage is skill damage, the bonus to skill damage here is definitely more meaningful, and I do still stand by the fact that an extra 30 rage here is going to be pretty nice when it does occur, because you are going to be casting the burning of Jinye, sorry if I mispronounced that, but you're going to be casting this a ton, and every time you do that, you're gaining 30 rage. Really like that for Emperor Qin. But let's revisit Hermann for a second, because I did briefly talk about him in my original video, and again, if we're going to be casting our active skills more often than we initially thought, and if all of Emperor Qin's damage is skill damage, then that means all of his damage benefits from the target being poisoned. So we have a double whammy effect here. Hermann's the secondary, and he casts his active skill a ton. You're going to be spreading poison really fast, and on top of that, you're going to get a lot of benefit out of that poison with Emperor Qin, because every turn you're hitting a poison target with skill damage. I really like that a lot. Again, he also gives you an AoE skill damage bonus here, which we really like, and the faster you spread poison, the faster you get a bonus cast of your active skill on the expertise. Really something to consider here. And finally, YSG low-key could be the star of the show, strictly because of his 4th skill and the fact that his museum relic gives him 12% bonus skill damage and 20% archer defense. Like, this actually could be a really great use for your YSG, especially if you're running 2 archer marches, right? Because you already have Zhuge Liang with Hermann or Zhuge Liang with Philip, right? And to be clear, I think since there's so much skill damage being done by Emperor Qin, I feel like Hermann Prime's poison is really going to be valuable here. So I'd probably run Zhuge Liang with Hermann still, and then you run Emperor Qin primary with Seong-Gye as secondary, and you have a 5 target circular AoE. That's sure a little low on damage factor these days, but you get a 62% increase to skill damage based on this and the museum relic. And then on top of that, we have the built-in rage engine. Okay, every basic attack you have a 10% chance to gain 100 extra rage, and this is what we want for Emperor Qin. We want as much rage as possible on his kit, and I think this is going to be a really valuable way to get as much rage on the board as you can. And also a 100% bonus to archer attack really can't hurt as well, given how much damage you're outputting, and also the fact that there is no archer attack on the kit of Emperor Qin, right? So really like the synergy here. And honestly, it still might be a little slow because you only have the 20% march speed on Emperor Qin, but you're gonna have 30% defense from Emperor Qin, 20% defense from YSG's relic, so 50% archer defense and 20% archer health, and then the chance of the 100% archer attack on the second skill of YSG, and a 62% bonus to skill damage to basically forgive the fact that you don't have attack on your kit all the time. Like, I really want to drive this home. The 62% bonus to skill damage here with YSG is almost like 62% all damage. Like, I know that sounds insane and hyperbolic, but like, if you have enough rage every turn to consume it and deal direct damage, and when you do that you deal even more skill damage with the active skill on Emperor Qin, almost all of the damage you're dealing is skill damage, right? Like, it's every turn, and then the active skill is probably skill damage. We have to check, but like, it seems like it would be, and then you're dealing skill damage with YSG. So like, am I crazy? When would you not be dealing skill damage? I guess counterattacks are still going to be counterattack damage, right? And that's still going to be based on your normal damage, but besides that, pretty much everything else on this kit is skill damage. And so the YSG pairing here, low key, could be just broken, just straight up, like, you just broke the game. And also, again, pair that with all of the inscriptions that are on the wedge formation, like Hunter and stuff, dude, all of that is boosts to skill damage, which is almost like all damage. I feel like Emperor Qin YSG could be the actual play, especially if you're running 2 archers. Part of me wonders how the 4th skill on Artemisia is going to work as well, because sure, like, let's assume that when you consume 80% of the rage requirement, this will proc, right? But if you silence yourself for 3 seconds, it almost, like, as long as you have 3 seconds worth of the buff up on your active skill from Emperor Qin, right? Like, remember, you're gonna start the battle with this for 10 seconds if he's expertise, so you won't need to cast this for the first 10 seconds at least, and you're starting the battle with 500 rage. So like, I almost feel like the self-silence isn't that big of a deal on Artemisia, but at the end of the day, she also doesn't have a skill damage bonus or anything like that, so yeah, probably still not going to be good. But I was just curious. I mean, like, a 50% bonus to all damage is kind of insane. I also wonder how the active skill is going to work with Ashurbanipal, because his expertise says whenever you use an active skill you gain one of the following buffs for 4 seconds, but I suspect that the active skill casting is what triggers this, obviously, rather than just the procking of the buff that you have on yourself, the Eternal Emperor buff or whatever it's called. So definitely something I want to test here, or I want to see tested, but I'm not expecting anything crazy, although it could. There's a tiny chance that this could be broken. There's no cooldown here. Now we also should revisit the potential Philip pairing here, because now that I have a better understanding of how Emperor Qin works, I actually kind of like this pairing a little bit more, because one of the problems that we typically have with Philip as a secondary is that when he casts his active skill for the next 2 seconds, the 40% more all damage that you deal here doesn't land with any of your active skills usually. And so with Emperor Qin, you actually don't have to time it at all. You're probably just always dealing that 5 target skill shot, right? So for 2 of those skill shots, it's going to spike in damage by 40%, and then you also take 20% less damage, which is nice because you're already super tanky, on top of the fact that he's also giving you 35% health and the march speed that archers are. I mean, yeah, that plus the 30% all damage. The only little bit of lack of synergy here is that Emperor Qin does not seem like the type of commander that is going to rely on instant proc, right? He doesn't seem like the type of commander that wants to go in and out of battle. He seems like the type that you want to just throw in the heat of everything and just burn down everything around you and just tick everything down slowly. And so the instant proc here doesn't perfectly line up with that strategy, but everything else I do actually really like, especially because this, again, the fact that you don't have to time this with the active skill, it's just going to always probably be timed right. The additional casts of Philip are now more valuable as well, right? So the Philip pairing is definitely something to look at here. So my top picks for best commander are Zhuge Liang, and then I'm kind of a toss up between Hermann Prime and YSG. I feel like you could make a really strong argument for YSG based on the kit here. So so we are gonna have to wait and see. But is YSG back? I mean, he barely left. Archers are still using him, and does this like give him even more juice? I don't know. Now, the last thing I want to share with you guys here actually doesn't have to do with Emperor Qin. Surprisingly, it has to do with Shapur, and one of the things that I should have mentioned explicitly in my initial video, but the active skill here is obviously a counter to Tokugawa. If the target has less than 500 rage, it also cannot receive shield effects for the next 2 seconds. And then the third skill says whenever you deal skill damage, it has a 20% chance to inflict the following effect for 3 seconds. Target cannot receive temporary health buffs, and they deal 20% less normal damage. This is literally a counter to the Tokugawa Gorgo garrison, because Tokugawa's third skill stacks health bonuses, right? And his active skill has mighty shields, so this is like a direct counter. And also don't forget that the Gorgo Tokugawa garrison is all smite damage, right? And that is literally based on normal damage. And so if we, you know, reduce the amount of normal damage that they're dealing with this, then this is just a double counter to that garrison. So just wanted to touch on this here. Shapur, obviously, I mean, he's archers, right? And throughout all of Rise of Kingdoms history, archer rallies have been the things to counter infantry garrisons, but I did just want to come out and say it explicitly. Yes, this is built to counter Tokugawa, obviously, and it probably is going to be devastating. It's also worth noting that Hera has 2 different sources of shields. First, it's on the active skill, and then on the third skill it says whenever you use an active skill, you gain a shield for 3 seconds. Obviously, Hera is a pretty commonly used garrison, so Shapur just kind of counters all of the meta garrisons right now, at least in that way. Anyway, guys, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I really do appreciate it. If you missed my first video covering these 2 commanders, go ahead and check it out if you want to see what all of their skills actually do. That video is going to be linked in the description. While you're down there, consider dropping a thumbs up on the video. It really helps out the channel a ton. It'll get this video out into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it, and maybe you will teach me a lesson. Maybe it is okay to post 2 videos in a 12-hour window. Maybe it won't cannibalize my first video too much, but either way, all the support on this video is really going to help, so I do appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts on Emperor Qin now that we have all of this information that truthfully was there all along. I just didn't see it when I recorded at 5 in the morning. And also this animation, man, this animation is just dirty. It is just absolutely diabolical. Let me know in the comment section below. While you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video so you don't miss the breaking news. And finally, like I said earlier in the video, go ahead and check out my second channel where I cover all sorts of gaming related news topics, and follow me over on Twitch if you don't want to miss the next time that I go live. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.